going on, guys? It's Millen here from True Horizon. Today, I'm going to be explaining exactly how you as an enterprise or business leader can actually implement AI into your business with a high success rate that's going to ensure return and cut through all of the noise. Now, most AI implementations fail not because of technology, but mainly because of execution gaps and, most importantly, improper strategy. What we're going to talk about today is exactly the phased approach that we have used that's going to enable you to transform your organization into an AI-first org that is beating all of your competitors. So, first of all, why 95% of AI pilots fail? Now, this was a stat that was pulled from the recent MIT study that was published. The real problem is because of these 4 key reasons. First of all, we have a no clear roadmap or strategy. Folks like to jump in and just start developing agents that they think are cool and shiny, but don't actually drive EBITDA or returns. We see a very weak data foundation and poor data hygiene. This is probably the number one blocker that we have seen to successful AI transformation in enterprises. We see a lack of ownership and accountability where people don't know, because the technology is so new, who's responsible for what, who takes ownership over what initiatives, and this very often can stall progress. And finally, we see poor change management. Of course, with any new technology, with any new system that people are using that's driving returns, there's a change management process that has to occur in regards to enablement, training, and making sure folks know what the new business processes are in a post-AI world. And so everything that we're about to talk about today, again, is not theory. These are these are the actual process that we've used across engagements. So why trust these automations at all? We have scaled to 300K MRR, delivering custom AI services. We've done over 25 engagements from pre-revenue startups all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. Within these engagements, we've done numerous projects, probably over 100 projects to date. And everything that we're about to talk about is 100% practical, really focused on driving strategy and everything with the focus of how do we implement AI to actually grow the business. So with all that being said, let's jump into it. The 3-phase framework that we use here at True Horizon to implement AI into any business. First, we have the audit and strategize component. This is how we build clarity and alignment before any development actually begins. This is how we mitigate that 95% of GenAI pilots failing, is by knowing that what we're actually going to build is actually going to drive return. Next, we have the automate and enable section. This is where we actually go ahead and develop, deliver, and deploy AI solutions into your business. This is when we can start tracking returns. This is when team members get enabled and trained on what's actually happening in the post-AI era. And finally, the final component is to scale and optimize. Whatever we know is winning initiatives, we scale that across the team. We scale automations across functions, across departments. And this is really when we can get into very cool optimization techniques to make sure that LLM is always producing returns for your business. So jumping right into phase 1 of audit and strategize. This is the foundation of every successful AI transformation. This is the portion where most people fail. And the kind of takeaway here is you can't automate what you don't understand. So before implementing any type of AI solution, any type of LLM solution, you really have to run an AI audit to make sure that you understand the process and that the business is ready to actually implement a new process that has an AI-first methodology. So this is where we discover ROI opportunities, and this is where we define the AI strategy. So what do we actually deliver here in terms of the audit and strategize, and what should you be thinking about? We have first an ROI opportunity map. So what we do is we go through and we run discovery calls across your entire department, which we'll talk about in just a second, across all departments of your entire company. And this is how you can actually start to identify those places for ROI opportunity. Next, what you would want to do is break down these processes, right? So once you actually can find, hey, here are the places for ROI, break down the processes and actually go ahead and document them. Literally in pure text, because a lot of this can become prompts and turns into training ground for the AI. Literally write what happens in this process, okay? Here we have 300 invoices coming in that hit our AP invoices, our accounts payable email every single month. What then happens is the invoicing team will go through and manually extract the line items and the PO numbers. Then what happens is the invoicing team sends them to the right ops team for processing. Literally like this, go ahead and document all the processes that are actually happening within your business, because this is what's going to allow us to create the current and future state analysis, right? Once we know, we have a deep understanding of what is the current state of all the processes that are happening in the business, we can then take a look at what does the future state look like? In a world where this is automated, what does that actually look like, right? And here's where we can get comparison benchmarks. So for example, in that example I just said, let's say the AP team is spending 100 hours per month on actually extracting those PO items. Well, that is something that we can do in a fully automated fashion. Now the AP team has 100 hours per month back, right? So this is the current and future state analysis that we want to run for all the processes. This is also going to allow us to cascade ROI down, right? Because we can say, okay, cool, AP team has 100 hours per month back. What am I actually paying the AP team, right? So what's the cost that I'm saving there? Maybe who can I cut, right? How many FTEs can I let go, which is going to again drive profitability. And again, now how is that AP team reinvesting those 100 hours back, right? Are they now spending more time with customers? Are we more on time for payments? Is this then going to have downstream impacts of customers are happy with us? Now they're X% more likely to refer us. They are, they have a Y% increase in LTV. So these are all the things that we want to uncover again before we write a single line of code, before we deploy any workflow, right? This then leads us into the implementation roadmap. So based on everything that we just said, the current and future state analysis, all the processes, the ROI opportunity, what does that actually look like when we break that down into an AI implementation roadmap? What is the phase execution? What are the timelines and things like that? And actually what we end up delivering is we deliver high fidelity wireframes. So they're wireframes of the actual workflows. So we know what everything looks like post AI implementation. Now, one thing that you can do, and you can have all of your team members do this, all of your employees, all of your department heads, etc., is use our 4 cornerstones of automation framework to actually go ahead and identify where in the business can we implement automations that are going to actually drive the highest return. So you can score tasks across these 4 pillars to identify those opportunities by ROI versus implementation effort. So the 4 stones are 1, repetitive, 2, time-consuming, 3, error-prone, and 4, scalable. So what tasks are repetitive that people are manually doing? Right here, we have manual data entry, maybe lead enrichment, maybe form processing. Look at time consuming, right? What's taking up a lot of manual time that eats up hours of your staff's time? Things like research, reporting, the invoice processing that I just mentioned. What's error prone, right? Where is it that humans are likely to make errors that AI might not, right? This could happen in manual approvals and data transfers between teams. And finally, what's scalable, right? What's going to grow linearly with company growth versus what's going to not scale with company growth? So things like customer onboarding, email campaigns, support tickets, right? If I want to handle, right now if I'm handling 10 support tickets and I have one manual process for that, but I actually want to handle 1,000 support tickets because that means I have, 1,000 times the customers that are coming in, that's a scalable task that we would look at that's ripe for automation, right? The next component here is the data infrastructure and readiness. Now, like I said, this is potentially one of the most frequent blockers that we see is not having proper data hygiene. So go ahead and audit your data health, right? What are the data sources that you're using? Do you have a CRM? Do you have an ERP? Are you using customer data platforms? Using marketing platforms? What internal databases do you use, right? And what's the governance and security that we have around those? Where is data siloed, right? Some key questions that you would want to get answered are, is the data structured and accessible? So what does it look like if we gave an AI access to that data and it wanted to chat with it, right? Does your team trust the data? So is it high quality? Are there gaps in data reporting and data entry, which would mean that maybe the data is not always up to date? Are there clear data owners? So do we know who actually owns which database, who's responsible for the hygiene, and can these systems communicate with each other? These are all things that we want to look at because really a AI system is only as good as the data that it can use. And so making sure that we understand this component is critical. And I would even take this one step further by saying that we also want to identify what's the likelihood that we can integrate a particular data system with a automation tool or automation provider like N8N. So this leads us into the next component of the audit and strategize is the governance and security frameworks, right? AI governance is not a buzzword. It is actually exactly how you can manage risk and minimize risk when you are implementing AI. So before deployment, you want to establish clear policies around your AI that's going to allow you to accelerate adoption without exposing unnecessary risks. Some of the things that we want to look at here again, data access and retention, right? Who and what, meaning what platforms can access what data, how long is that data stored? We want to look at model input and output auditing, right? So again, think now we have already performed the audit. So we have a pretty clear implementation plan. We have some ROI projections. Now, when it comes to that implementation plan, what systems are in place that are going to make sure we know when AI is making decisions? What is the likelihood of hallucination? What is the likelihood of prompt injection? What is the likelihood of toxicity inputs, and how do we mitigate all of these risks to an LLM system? We want to make sure that we are in compliance with any standards that we need, right? So GDPR if you're in Europe, or SOC 2 compliance, HIPAA compliance, etc. And then human in the loop, right? Where and in what processes is AI doing work that a human needs to review before we can go ahead and publish that work or push that work to a customer or send it to another team member, etc. These are all the places where we would want human in the loop. Generally speaking, before we send some work that AI has done to another team or to a customer, we want a human to review that. One of the key things here is going to be assigning a governance owner to actually be able to oversee all these frameworks, especially if you're in a larger organization. This is one of the most critical things that you should think about before actually implementing any AI solution. The final component of the phase one is the executive alignment and strategy formation, right? Without the strategic alignment, we just end up having a ton of siloed work and disconnected pilots, right? We strongly recommend forming an internal AI council or an AI COE, AI Center of Excellence. This should have cross-functional leadership. So you want leadership from across your entire company, and you want everyone to align on your AI vision statement, right? Why are you implementing AI? What are the non-negotiables around your AI strategy? What does success actually look like? And who owns what, right? This is pretty much a new team. This is a new technology, so you want to make sure that you are all aligned on the vision, again, before executing anything. So that sums up our phase one. Once we had this, you're now walking away with, you have an internal team, you have governance and security frameworks, you have a very clear sense of your data hygiene, your different pieces of your organization, how data is siloed. You have ROI projections with a current state and future state analysis of what does it look like once you actually automate certain processes. And then and only then are you ready to actually start implementing AI. Now we've mitigated the 95% of GenAI pilots that fail by performing all of these steps. And now we get to move into the fun part, which is automate and enable. This is how we go from strategy to execution, right? Now we've mapped all the opportunities. We've built the foundation. It's time to automate and empower your teams. So prioritize 1 to 3 workflows from the audit with the highest ROI potential. Typically, we also see a massive gain by going department by department. This is actually how we engage as well, is we'll go department by department to make sure that we are developing things that are reusable and actually have the highest return from the get-go. So again, you want to prioritize the flows. You want to start building the flows. You want to test the flows, and then you want to deploy the flows, right? And this is that automation piece. This is how we actually develop and deliver LLM systems, AI agents, and the like. So first of all, tool selection and architecture design, right? This is where you want to spend some time to ensure long-term success and adaptability with your AI strategy. So what we use here at True Horizon is we use N8N. Now, N8N is a no-code, low-code automation builder, and this serves as our core orchestration layer for all of our AI systems. It's self-hostable and is enterprise secure, which enables modular and auditable workflow design. It also integrates natively with over 800 sources, including APIs, different CRMs, vector databases, and a variety of foundational models. Actually, every single foundational model. It offers flexibility with control, reducing vendor lock-in for critical automation. So, and I should say actually, it doesn't integrate natively with foundational models. However, you can self-host models and integrate with them there. The native integrations are with the with the most famous frontier models: Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, Grok, etc. And this is what reduces that vendor lock-in, because you can very easily switch from model to model. You're never going to be locked into a particular ecosystem, and it's going to be very easy for you to A/B test different models. You want to go ahead and supplement with different tools. So LLMs, these are just some random LLMs here that I picked. Actually, most of these are pretty outdated. I have some information later on as to how we actually select foundational models. Same thing with vector stores. We actually here at True Horizon prefer Supabase because it's just Postgres under the hood. So you can have a traditional PostgreSQL database. It also doubles as a vector store. And this is really good for efficient semantic search, different data layers, and monitoring. So we actually have an internal tool here called Thai UI, but also recommend different tools: Grafana, Datadog, Metabase. All of these tools are basically going to do the same thing. And this is how you monitor your LLM system in production and know that it's actually driving return. What is it doing? What's the token consumption? What's the cost, etc. The other thing you want to do here is a build versus buy analysis, right? You want to see, for a given function that you're about to do, is there some type of a proven AI SaaS product that's already on the market that's going to be like $20 or $100 or $500 per month that is going to solve this problem that you're looking to solve, in which case you don't need to spend a few weeks or months developing something, right? You can just go ahead and leverage this off-the-shelf tool. You want to look at, does this workflow require custom logic and data, right? Proprietary data, unique workflows. If yes, then you want to build that in-house, right? Maybe you want to use custom code. Maybe you want to use your self-hosted end-to-end instance. And is there rapid pilot potential? Is this a quick win that you can very quickly prototype something, again, in end-to-end or custom code? If yes, run the pilot sprints. These are massive. These pilot sprints are absolutely massive because it gets the team extremely excited about the potential, and it really shows you what does an LLM system actually look like, once you get it over the finish line. So the next strongest recommendation here is to start with deterministic, then you layer in the LLM reasoning. So, and again, this is to establish reliability, right? This is one of the most key things. You always want to start with deterministic automations. Now, what do I mean by deterministic automations? In short, I mean it's an automation or a workflow that you can determine with 100% certainty what is going to happen. These are basically your if X, then Y workflows, right? And the reason why these are so critical is because you get these in place, they will have a 0% error rate. They will have a 100% success rate, obviously. And these are what quietly buy back thousands of hours for organizations that are using outdated or legacy workflows. The best part about these is that they are extremely low risk, right? If you can very clearly define if X then Y and you just implement a workflow for that, that is the best place to start. What happens next, right? Once we implement these deterministic workflows, once we have that reliability and structure, that's when we can start to layer in the non-deterministic, cool LLM, shiny AI agent workflows. This is where we get reasoning, summarization, and decision-making capabilities for LLMs, right? Now, these are your if X, then maybe Y or Z. This is where you would want an LLM to go ahead and make that decision, right? But again, this all comes after we do the deterministic automations, which I cannot stress enough. Quick example is an automated invoice extraction, right? Let's say we have an invoice hitting the inbox and we know that we want to extract the PO number. That is the deterministic thing, right? If the invoice hits, extract the PO number. Boom. That's a quick win. That's an easy win. And we would want to start here. Step 2 would be to add AI for categorization, right? Let's say now we have PO numbers that have 5 digits versus PO numbers that have 6 digits represent a difference between a SMB customer and an enterprise customer, right? And actually, sorry, that is actually a deterministic example. Here, let's stick to the script here. Let's say we want to generate narrative summaries, right? So we have a PO come in and we have maybe some other information is attached there to the invoice. We want to have LLM add intelligence This is where reasoning comes in. This is where we would add in AI for categorization. So the invoice comes in, if X, then Y, right? If there's a PO number, extract the PO number. Then we have LLM read the actual invoice and provide us a summary. And then maybe LLM can make a decision. Oh, hey, I see that this is an invoice from one of our vendors that is aligned to this ops team. Then the LLM can make the decision to route to that ops team. And even a workflow like that can be built in a deterministic fashion. But this is effectively the non-determinism versus determinism workflow here. And again, why this order matters: it builds trust, stability, and reliability. It creates those measurable baselines so we know, right, what's the current state versus the future state. And again, it reduces the hallucination risk. If we are doing an if X then Y workflow, there's no risk of hallucination because we don't have LLM thinking, processing, or reasoning anything, right? And again, you cannot optimize chaos. You want to automate predictable workflows first. The next component here is to implement observability, A/B testing, and user testing, right? So every build should be a controlled experiment. You want to test models, you want to test vector stores, you want to measure results, and then you want to involve users early to ensure success. So in observability, there's a few things that you want to do, right? You want to track your workflow success failure rates, your execution latency, your token consumption, and cost. You want to monitor your business metrics like time saved, error reduction, how this propagates down into other areas of ROI. And there's a few different tools here that you can use for observability. A/B testing. Now, this is extremely important, right? You want data to decide what configuration wins through a detailed and robust comparison. So what we do here at True Horizon, what I would encourage you to do is for any given workflow, A/B test the different foundational models, right? So for the same workflow, use GPT-5, then use Claude, then use Grok, then use DeepSeek, or whatever it is, and compare the results of the system on accuracy, latency, and cost for the exact same task. There is always a trade-off in LLM between accuracy and latency, accuracy and latency, meaning the faster your workflow is, the more likely it is to be inaccurate, and the slower your workflow is, because just think about it, right? You have the LLM, it has more time to think, then the more accurate it will be. So this is always a trade-off. So you want to A/B test these different models and figure out which one works. Do the exact same thing for vector store performance, right? Because again, all these embeddings models, these vector stores are going to perform differently. You want to do the same thing with prompting. So if you have a large system prompt for a given system and you have multiple versions of that, maybe the structure is different, maybe the instructions are in a different order, all the things that go into prompt engineering, have different versions of those prompts and track performance. And again, you can always roll back to different prompts. And again, you want to evaluate pipeline alternatives. So different data pipelines and everything that we just talked about here. What are the alternatives? What's the trade-off here between cost, efficiency, speed, etc.? You also want to do user testing during the build phase, right? So involve your end users from day one. Let's say, for example, you have a workflow for your sales department that is going to automate their discovery call research. Now, you want them looking at the research that LLM is provided from day one, as early as possible. So, because they are going to be the end user. So they can tell you, whoever's building the system, hey, this structure was good, this structure was bad. Can we have the LLM pull these other XYZ insights that I typically use? So you want to gain that user feedback from day one. It's going to get you insights on usability, accuracy, and workflow friction, measure that sentiment, and establish a feedback cycle. So we have a few ways that we do this. We can integrate natively with a collaboration tool. You can also just have people log their responses to an LLM, where LLM will then synthesize all those responses and send it back to the build team. And again, the iterative cycle here is number 1, build. Number 2, demo and use. Number 3, collect feedback from stakeholders. Number 4, iterate on that feedback. Number 5, redeploy, and the cycle then continues. This is exactly how you can make sure that what you're building is actually going to work. The next component here is team enablement and change management, right? AI implementation fails when employees don't understand it or when leadership doesn't understand it. Transformation happens when people feel empowered, not replaced. Now, the brutal reality is there are AI systems that are going to enable you to cut FTEs. That's going to drive profitability for your business. The flip side is AI systems that really empower people and get back their time so that they can focus on revenue generating tasks for your business. For example, what I just said, right? If every single sales rep is performing 10 hours per week of research for discovery calls, now that gets cut to 5 minutes. What are those 9 hours and 55 minutes going back into, right? Are they going back into maybe they are updating their notes better in Salesforce. Maybe they're spending more time with customers. Maybe they can take 10x the amount of calls that they can. So all of these things are what you want people to understand, right? You want people to understand, hey, if we automate a major part of your job, you should reinvest that time back into XYZ thing. The way you do that is by running these enablement workshops, right? So you want every department, every team, every group of users for a given system to know how they're impacted by new automations and how to reinvest the newfound time, which is critical. Absolutely critical. You want to create AI champions inside. Now, most companies already have these. These are the people that I love talking to. And these are the people that are going to drive adoption. They're going to drive enablement. And they're going to be advocates for AI systems within each business unit, within each department. Develop these clear standard operating principles with training content, user guides, so people know exactly what they should be using, how they should be using it, and tie these to performance KPIs, right? You can link AI success to productivity metrics and turnaround time for a particular task, which is really going to, again, drive enablement and make sure that folks are using the new systems that are driving the efficiency gains that we uncovered during the audit. The final and last phase is the scale and optimize phase. This is how we go from validated wins to an enterprise-wide transformation, right? Now we have proven pilots. We have proven systems. We have systems in place that we're measuring ROI. We're tracking performance. The team is enabled. Everyone is using them. Now we want to measure the success, right? Quantify the business impact. See how they've compared to what our projections were, right? With time saved, cost reduced, revenue generated, error reduction, and so many other metrics that we can take a look at. You want to go ahead and scale what works, right? So roll out those proven pilots across the departments using prioritizing matrix. Typically, right, you just want to look at something like a timeline where we have ROI, and effort, and where we want to be is here. Right? The things with high ROI and low effort, that's what we want to scale first. And you want to optimize everything consistently, right? With the LLM observability, with the A/B testing. The thing is, AI is so new, and the rate of intelligence increase of the foundational models is truly something to be astonished at. There are new tools, there are new techniques, there are new technologies being invented every single day. Like if the next MCP comes out, right? We want to go ahead and implement that. And that's what this optimize continuously brings. Again, you want to measure success and ROI, right? Execs need a live pulse. So have a dashboard that shows the ROI tracking by department, by use case, by function. Again, some of the things, time saved, cost reduction, error rate drop, revenue growth, and there are so many more, right? You really want to embed AI into your organization's DNA. The reality is AI is not going anywhere. This is how you move from projects to programs. This is how you move from confusion to clarity. AI adoption is not a sprint to one AI agent that's going to, boil the ocean and save the business. It's a continuous cycle of alignment, execution, and optimization. So I strongly recommend here ongoing governance, regular AI council meetings and advisory roles, a culture of experimentation where you are rewarding those folks who are identifying automation opportunities, a chief AI officer, whether fractional or full-time, to oversee the long-term strategy and implementation, make sure the security risk is mitigated, and the internal AI playbook, right? This becomes one of your biggest competitive advantages if you do it right. This is really an operating system that's constantly updating itself because you can integrate AI into this, adapting to the new opportunities and technologies, and optimizing the existing processes. So this is the executive AI playbook, right? These are the 3 phases. 1, audit and strategize. 2, automate and enable. 3, scale and optimize. The difference between companies that win with AI and those that fail comes down to process. And again, the future really does belong to businesses that can turn AI from an idea into infrastructure, and that is what's going to give your business lasting returns and a competitive edge that we have honestly never seen before. So That's all that I had. I hope you found this valuable. If you have any questions or you're interested in working with me or my business, the link to connect will be in the description of this video. Thank you very much for your time and best of luck on your AI journey. Thanks.